With close to 1 million species now threatened with extinction, it's not often you hear about a conservation success story. But the mountain gorillas of the East African nation of Rwanda are just that. When American naturalist Diane Foss moved to Rwanda half a century ago to study mountain gorillas, their numbers were dwindling down to just 254 individuals. But today, they're up to over 600, with another 400 in neighboring Uganda, the only great ape whose numbers are actually on the rise. How they've done it? A joint effort by scientists and government to save gorillas and help the human communities around them, with a key role played by tourists.
The story will continue in a moment.
These are the Virunga volcanoes, home to most of the world's mountain gorillas. Diane Foss aptly called them gorillas in the mist. But when the mist lifts, they are gorillas in the sun, doing what mountain gorillas do: eat, rest, eat some more, and snuggle.
When you look in the eyes of a gorilla, you see a kindred spirit looking back at you. They are so much like us. They have friends, they have enemies, they love to play, they love to eat, they love to nap. They are incredible moms and incredible dads. So we're going to pull this one out.
Primatologist Tara Stowinski heads the Diane Foss Gorilla Fund, a nonprofit research and conservation organization that grew out of Foss's work. How many years did she live up here alone?
She was in the forest for 18 years.
Foss was sent to Rwanda in 1967 by famed anthropologist Louis Leakey, who had also sent Jane Goodall to Tanzania to study chimps.
The people in the region, they gave her a nickname, Niria Machibiri, which meant woman that lives alone in the forest. I'm sure they wondered, like, what was she doing up there?
Strange woman living up in the
Strange woman,
mountain.
and very tall. She was 6 foot. This is actually from 1969.
What she was doing, as Stowinski showed us, was observing gorillas for hours a day.
What she would do each night is come back and type up all of her notes.
There is some soft pig grunting heard from the silverback, and gas is released. And this just goes on and on and on. Foss's research and her appearances in National Geographic helped change the perception of gorillas from aggressive King Kong brutes to the gentle vegetarian giants they actually are. But gorillas back then were under assault. Why were there poachers? Why were people interested?
Well, at the time, people unfortunately wanted parts of gorillas as trophies. So they wanted a gorilla head for their mantelpiece or a gorilla hand.
The gorilla's habitat was also being eaten away as thousands of acres of forest were cut down so farmers could plant cash crops up the mountainside. The demarcation line between farmland and forest stands out like a bad haircut, showing how little land gorillas have left. We cut down their homes.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's the story for wildlife around the world.
But here, that story is getting a rewrite. And the new version starts at Volcanoes National Park headquarters every morning, where tourists gather to trek to see gorillas, led by expert guides.
They can live up to 45 years.
The Rwandan government regulates the visits, no more than 8 people per group for just 1 hour with the gorillas, with precautions taken to protect them from human illness. The price tag is steep, $1,500 per person, turning Rwanda, a country known for its horrific 1994 genocide, not so much for its beautiful scenery, into a prime destination for the wealthy. Some of the most luxurious hotels in the world have opened here, generating tens of millions in tourism revenue. Other countries have diamonds, oil. Would you say that gorillas are the most important natural resource of this whole country?
Definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's one of, if not the top source of foreign revenue, is tourism to see the gorillas.
For the whole country?
For the whole country.
The government gives 10% of the money from those gorilla treks to districts that border national parks in a program called Tourism Revenue Sharing.
As you see this school behind, that was before.
Chief Park Warden Prosper Uwangeli met us at a local primary school. Behind him was the old school. Behind me,
Look at the windows.
new classrooms paid for by tourism revenue sharing funds. It costs $1,500
Yes.
to go see the gorillas for
Yes.
1 hour.
For 1 hour. Special experience.
He admits it's a lot, but says it's made a tremendous difference in his meetings with local leaders.
We go there and we listen what communities want the tourism revenue sharing to support.
They decide.
Yeah, they decide.
This village built a health center. This one, new housing with water tanks and electricity. Here, a new marketplace. The 10% gives communities up to $650,000 US a year.
Good morning.
Uwangeli divides his time between greeting tourists, managing his rangers, and traveling around these villages, talking, cajoling, and celebrating what tourism revenue has achieved. A few years back, this community chose to get milking cows, which have since had calves, so the cows are now being given to new needy families. And those colorful striped sweaters? They're a product of tourism revenue sharing too. One year, this community used its funds to buy knitting machines. A lot of the guides, porters, come from these communities.
From these communities, and some of them are former poachers themselves.
No.
Yeah.
Some of the porters and guides
Yeah.
were poachers.
Or come from poacher families.
So has all poaching of gorillas stopped?
Yeah, in Rwanda, yes. Confidently, yes.
But gorillas can still get caught in snares set for smaller animals, like antelopes. So the Foss Fund dispatches a small army of trackers every morning, 365 days a year.
We go out into the forest. We know every gorilla and all of the families that we monitor. We check and make sure every one of them is okay. If one looks ill, we'll notify the veterinarians. And we call this extreme conservation.
It could also be called an extreme workout.
Oh boy.
We set off on a gorilla trek with Stowinski, Uwangeli, and a team of porters. Visiting mountain gorillas is no walk in the park. It's an uphill hike for more than an hour at an altitude of 8,000 feet through that farmland that once belonged to the gorillas,
Can we stop here?
just to get to the park.
Are you out of breath?
Yes.
Or is it just me?
Then, just as we reach the park border,
Oh my goodness gracious, I can't believe it.
a silverback, used to seeing tourists, sat calmly eating,
He's right here. Look.
Yeah, come.
unfazed by our gawking and pointing. Uwangeli told us he's an adult male named Lisanga. Foss Fund Country Director Felix Ndidijimana taught us how to signal that we come in peace.
Oh, that's very good.
Inside the park, after more climbing,
Lesley, look at Lesley. Oh, look at the baby. Oh my goodness.
we found the rest of Lisanga's group.
Let's follow them.
Uwangeli told us the dominant silverback was heading higher up the mountain, so the whole group was following, and so were we. In a sign of the population's health, this group has 5 infants and several juveniles.
Oh my goodness.
They're having
That's
a ball.
serious.
They're having a ball.
She told us they play for fun and to practice fighting. Or perhaps just to show us who's boss. Near us in the forest, it sounded like a silverback photo shoot was going on. But Foss Fund research assistant Nadia Nionize wasn't snapping ordinary pictures. She was using a technique called photogrammetry to get better measurements of gorilla size
They're 4 centimeters in between each.
by beaming lasers onto the gorilla's body and head, which it doesn't feel.
Oh, I see it.
Back at the office, she uses the dots to make precise calculations of their size. Science remains the heart of the Foss Fund's mission. They have the largest collection anywhere of gorilla skeletons, where scientists from around the world come to do research.
Just sort of taking pieces out and pulling it like that.
And a gorilla poop lab.
You gather their poop?
It's like a treasure trove of information for us.
To study stress hormones and do DNA and paternity testing. But Stawinski says they're running out of space. So they're constructing a new multi-building green campus with initial funding from Ellen DeGeneres. Set to open next year, it'll celebrate the progress made in saving mountain gorillas, with plenty of space for researchers, exhibits for tourists and people from local communities, and views of the volcanoes.
And you can see the mist.
And it really rolls in.
The building process itself reinforces the fund's motto, helping people saving gorillas. It's employing more than 1,500 local workers, more than 20% of them women. One exhibit on display here will teach visitors to speak like a gorilla.
We can play
Welcome to Gorilla
You
Chat.
can hear.
We're happy that you want to learn to speak like a gorilla.
It plays gorilla vocalizations somewhat comparable to human ones. Yes, gorillas laugh.
Isn't that great? So the idea is that you have to try and mimic it.
That's impossible.
She gave me one she said was simple.
So this is the pig grunt.
What does it mean?
It's kind of like a mild warning. The sort of human version is
You're on thin ice.
You want to try it with me recording and see?
Yeah.
Okay.
Try again. I did such a bad job.
It's hard.
So fun.
Won't it be fun though?
Stawinski wants school kids to come and be inspired to solve the next set of problems, increasing numbers of gorillas inhabiting a fixed amount of space.
As the population has increased but the habitat hasn't, it is putting more pressure on the gorillas. And so the government is looking to try and expand the park so that there will be more space so that population can continue to grow.
There are plans to expand the park by 23% and relocate communities to what the government calls model villages like this one, with electricity and brand new schools, trying to make park expansion another win-win for gorillas and their human neighbors.
It's a success story.
It is a success story, definitely, but we say it's a fragile success because there are so few of them left and there are still so many threats.
But for now, the news is good. So far this year, 24 new baby gorillas have been born here.
Wow, I mean, you can't have enough of telling those stories of gorillas. When you look at the moms carrying the babies.
Do you know that when you talk about gorillas, your face completely lights up?
I know about it. But much of the smile comes from what they are helping us to achieve. That's really the best way we can serve the next generation of kids, gorillas.
Oh my goodness.
And people.